Must have brushed up against the icing. Uh-huh. Thank you, Chip.
Yeah.
I think the cake's okay.
Yeah.
Chip, did you write this?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Chip, why did you spill Janice like that?
Like what?
What's
Restaurants, you think that you know fine food. I guess I'm a pot pie kind of guy. To me, they taste just as good. I'm trying to tell you something. I'm not sure that you'll follow. The surface, it has no depth now. You think that you're high. Karma tells me it's not right, but there's something that just can't find. It's you, babe. It's you, babe. I know I may not be your speed, an ordinary Joe. Indeed, that's me, babe. That's me, indeed. I love the taste of cool, fresh air. It's safe to say I've been there. The clouds in the sky. Tell me you notice them. You got no imagination. Is that something you might see? To do unto others, they say. You be nice to include me. I'm trying to tell you something. I'm not sure that you'll follow. The surface, it has no depth now. It must be that you're shallow, and you must know that I can see right through the petty games you play to stay away. Today's the day with me. I love the taste of cool, fresh air. It's safe to say, and I've been there. That's you, babe. That's you, babe. The clouds in the sky. You tell me you'll notice them. Tell me you'll notice them. Tell me you'll notice them.
Welcome to Tux TV. I'm your host, Jimmy Tux. Hopefully, there are storms just pouring through the Chicago area, so hopefully I am live. Hopefully. I'm trying to see if my phone's either frozen or Nitty's frozen my phone or something like that. So give me a thumbs up if something's going on. I don't know I don't even know. Oh boy. Let me try. One man show, folks. One man show. Shows I'm live. Shows I'm live. There we go. Okay. You are live. Thank you, Kari. Thank you very much. All right. Welcome to Tux TV. I was, of course, doing my normal Sunday routine, and I get flagged at 9 a.m. Just like always, that there's a new video from Brandon at Mindshift, and it said God versus Satan. And I watched for about the first 2.5 minutes, and I was like, this is amazing. I have to do it live. I'm just going to have to get a reaction video and a review of Brandon's fine work. So that's what I'm going to look at today. And, you know, for the most part, I don't know how much of it I'm going to get through because it's a 1-hour video, and it seems like if I converse side by side with him, I'm going to interrupt way too much. So, who knows? Who knows? Well, welcome to the program. I should get a pop-out video and see who's, let's see who's chatting. I could just see Kari. I can hear and see you clearly, but thank you. You know, Mindshift. I'm torn if he's my favorite or not, but he is, he's either one or two. And I think Paula Gia is my fave. I'm gonna lean towards you never forget your first love. I love you both. Love you both. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. BS is number 1.5. He's somewhere in there too. And he's had me on his voice animating actoring, making me a fine thespian of the YouTube community. So, all right. I also, if somebody wants to come on and make a commentary with me, I have no problem with inviting you on, and I'm sure it'll elongate the show even more. So let's get to Brandon, and anyone who wants to come on, just let me know. I'll pin the thing while Brandon plays here. I'll pin a stream to welcome you in.
Many of you are eager to get started, so here's a timestamp if you want to jump straight to Genesis. All I ask is that you like this video and subscribe if you have not. For the rest of you, I want to do a brief intro. I think that it's important because if there's one thing that Christianity has warned about over and over and over again, it is the enemy. It is the devil, Satan. Not that these two are the same, and we'll get into that, but we've all been warned about this great deceiver, this great destroyer, the thief that comes in the night, the lion that is on the prowl looking for whom he can devour. He tempts, he corrupts, he binds, and he possesses. Entire sermons and Bible studies and books have been done about how we can recognize the schemes of the devil, how to be on the lookout to make sure that we don't fall away. How is this entity so enormously a problem to the God of all creation, the God that created him? He is our cosmic villain, responsible for all that is evil, responsible for sin, responsible for hell. So much autonomy ripped away from God and given to this supposedly lesser being. It is he who is responsible for suffering and rebellion. Or is he? Because when you stop preaching, when you stop fear-mongering, when you just read the Bible for itself, a very different picture begins to emerge, and it's a picture I hope to draw out for you today. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to explain it, and then we'll get started. We're going to go through the 66 books of the Protestant canon. We're going to go book by book. We might make this into a 2-part video. I am not sure yet. In each book, we're going to look at a couple things. Anything that is considered the enemy. See, the problem is, over the course that this Bible, the collection that we have as the canon, was written, the idea of an enemy of God changed in a very large way. You can see more about that here. But so that we don't have to get hung up on that today, whether it is Satan or some kind of bad angel or the devil as we know him or demons, we're going to cover evil, anything that is an entity of evil, supernaturally speaking. I'll give you the verses for where we see this, a summary of what was done, and we're going to kind of take stock, maybe an audit, if you will, about just how much this evil force that every Christian blames for everything bad has actually done according to the scripture. And then we're going to compare it against God. Only what God himself has done or what God himself has commanded. And so that this is not a 100-hour video, I'm going to limit myself to only Yahweh's worst 3 acts per book of the Bible. It took a long time to compile this. I hope I didn't miss anything. I'm trying to be as fair as possible, but let's see how this turns out. We're going to go ahead and dive in at the beginning in Genesis. Now, Genesis is supposed to be the beginning of our story. You would think that all the important characters would get introduced, and yet, of course, we don't have anything like Jesus. We do have a mention of the Holy Spirit, which is interesting as he moves across the face of the water. But there is no Lucifer, there is no Satan, there is no devil, there is just a serpent, a crafty, talking serpent. Now, there are 2 verses later in the Bible. I think there's one in Ezekiel, and then the main one is in Revelation, where believers have taken that and mapped it back onto the serpent and said, oh, that was always Satan, that was always the devil. And I'm going to be using those terms a bit interchangeably because Christians do, even though there is a heavy distinction, and we'll see that as we go from Old Testament to New Testament. So I could just say there is no mention of the enemy in this story.
I fully agree. The Christian narrative has made it that way, but it is not in any way a Earl. I live. I am alive. Yes. Here for your pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Ro. Yes. The narrative that that the devil is in the Garden of Eden. It's clear to me that the all the Jewish texts that discuss this, there is no Hasatan or Lucifer reference to any of the interactions within the Garden of Eden. So you will not have, except for the Christian, you will not have any kind of reference to the devil or Satan or some variation of this being. And there's one other thing I want to touch on that's going to be in my next video. My next video is going to be a video essay, a collage. It's going to be a woven story. I fully anticipate everybody, including atheists, to dislike this program. But trust me when I say it will be a woven story that will make you think. It is designed, in my opinion, to be watched a lot. You don't have to watch it a lot, but if you do, you will learn in my video on how to become, I highly encourage everybody who watches the video to convert to Christianity and rob them blind. Talk about the deceiver. So Earl, you got to go. You were so excited. Oh, thank you. Oh, Earl, you're gonna make me blush. I can tune my camera to make me look like I'm blushing. I can look very red. I can almost look like the cartoon figure of that BS had me as. Do I have that on hand? No, I don't have that on hand. My apologies. So, and then, sorry for the old caps. Here's Tilt. It's good to see you, Tuck. Thank you, Tuck. Tilting Windmill. It's good to see you too. Now that I'm not on Shaken Fist once a week, I don't get to see Tilting Windmill except for on the interwebs around the other YouTubes. Yep. All right. So you do not have any variation of except in the Christian narrative. And he mentioned that there was two. There's also another one in one of Paul's writings in which he respects Eve in a way that she was the one deceived, and doesn't necessarily put the onus that I was raised to believe, doesn't necessarily put the onus on her. So, just got a text from work. That happens. Yay! We're going to shindig. This is going to be, I mean, to tell you, I have no doubt that I'm going to have to take a break. Kiss Mrs. Tux goodnight. She's working on some heavy work stuff right now. And so I'll probably find out that she's gone to bed, and I'll have to run up and give her a kiss goodnight. Pause for a moment. Hopefully somebody joins me, and I'll just let them take over, and we'll see. Yeah, it's true. I haven't been on for... I want to say the last time I was on was the last week of June with Zach Area. And he's been on Discord giving updates. So it's working hard and heavy on his book right now. And it sounds like he's somewhere around 85% done with his book that he wants to complete. Oh, yeah. Thank you for the compliment. I may need to also go and get some tasty beverages to keep the throat going. But perfect. All right, on with the show.
There's just someone who helps God's plot along, because without the serpent helping Adam and Eve to eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil before they had that knowledge, everything that God does afterwards, all of his plans for Jesus Christ to be redemption, which supposedly he had from the beginning, could not happen. So if anything, this serpent is an agent of God, but we'll give it the Christian understanding and we'll say that this is the devil. So Genesis 3 is pretty much where we get that story. Specifically, it says, "Now the serpent was more crafty than any other wild animal that the Lord God had made." Again, I think that really puts him in his place. He's just another animal. He's just one of the more crafty ones. "And the serpent said to the woman, 'You will not die. You will be like God,'" meaning that you will know right from wrong. So at best, giving it to the Christians that this is indeed the devil, then he is part of the reason that man first sinned. That is actually all he can get credit for. He cannot get credit for what God chose to do as a consequence to that sin. It was not the devil that did the consequence. And this is the biggest thing to understand if we're even saying the serpent is the devil, which moves us nicely into the three worst things God did. And number one would be cursing all humanity for all time because of this one singular event from a naive, essentially baby when it comes to morality, Adam and Eve. It ushered in death, all the curses that God gives, generational and collective punishment, which are the definition of immorality. You being punished for something you had nothing to do with. In addition to the original sin that gets brought in as a stain on our soul that makes us immediately worthy of death and hell upon birth, we got the other curses. This is all wrapped up into one because this is just God's big, hey, you did this, now I'll do this. So we have the curse of the woman to be subordinate to the man, to have pain in childbearing, for a man to have to toil and work and sweat and hurt. In fact, if you just want a video on these curses that happen right here, I think this video can give you a lot of insight. If we move forward to God's second worst act, I'm going to give it to Genesis 6 and 7, where we get the story of the flood. Because of this sin that God allowed to enter the world afterwards, again, not the devil's doing, God's hands are tied. It's gotten too wicked, too evil. He knows how to fix it. He needs a reset. So he grabs the only righteous people he can find, I guess that's 8, and everything else, every living creature, woman, child, animal, is blotted out from existence in a horrific and terrifying flood. The greatest genocide the world has ever known. Again, under the pretense that any of this is real. And there are so many horrific things that happen in Genesis, it is hard to pick a third, but I'll go with Sodom and Gomorrah because it's another example of the Christian incorrect thinking that God is just when he does collective punishment. And if you are a Christian who believes that every single person in that city, except for Lot and his family, were are evil to the point of needing to be genocided, I would caution you to rethink what morality means to you and where you're getting those ideas. The babies, the toddlers, the mentally ill, the elderly, the women, and the men too, of course. It's not like everyone was
Think of the children. But the children.
actually wicked. If that were the case, what would today be like to God? Not only do we have billions of more people than existed back then, but surely, based off just what Christians tell me, the world deserves to be utterly destroyed. And yet this is his great reset. We are Plan 2.0. If this, that Christians are so unhappy with, where they see so much evil and harm and suffering, is God's better plan, maybe he shouldn't have spared those 8 people at all, especially when you consider that he's going to be sending the rest of us to hell. We can already so clearly see the insane inconsistencies in the Christian thinking and messaging and propaganda and indoctrination. Let's move into Exodus. And what do we have for the enemy? Nothing. There is no mention of Satan or the devil or anything like it. But what are 3 things that God does in Exodus? Well, in Exodus 4 and many other chapters, God starts the whole hardening of Pharaoh's heart. And I'm going to be pointing you to a lot of my other videos if you want more information. Here's this video on why all the Christian apologetics for that fail. God does this on purpose. He tells Moses about it ahead of time. He wants Pharaoh to say no so he gets to do his 10 plagues and show off his power so that Egypt will turn towards him. Something that Egypt did not do, by the way. So we have God setting up his own ability to cause an immense amount of harm on people that have nothing to do with the captivity of his people, which leads us to point 2 here, Exodus 12, where God kills all the firstborn, not just Pharaoh's firstborn, not just the royal court, all the way to the slaves of Egypt, their firstborn, and the firstborn of the animals. Not all of these people were kids, but some of them were, and many, if not near all of them, were innocent of the actual issue of the captivity of God's people. Not that he actually cares about slavery being wrong, just his chosen people not being in slavery. You'll see that in the next book. And then for a third thing that happens in Exodus, just to spice it up, there's a lot of examples I typically do, but I think I'll go to Exodus 14, where he drowns the entire Egyptian army. But Brandon, they're the bad guys. Who cares about that? I think it tells you something about this God when he purposely positions the enemy to have to be utterly destroyed. He could have gotten his people to freedom, but he wanted to brag of his power and take down the entire army. And so we get to see his hypocrisy, because again, later we will see him commanding his people to do the same thing, to chase after and drive out of the land and recapture slaves and all kinds of other things, just like the Egyptians were doing. And I am not condoning their behavior, not that it's real. But here God says, you'll all pay the price, even though I was the one manipulating your hearts about when you would and when you wouldn't care about this particular issue. Moving on to Leviticus, do we have a mention of Satan or the devil or anything like it? None at all. But a couple guys did something with incense they weren't supposed to do in the right ritualistic, law-abiding way, and so God sent down fire and killed them. You know, the God of forgiveness. The God that tells us to forgive 70 times 7 supposedly is the same entity in the New Testament. And of course, just to point out the
Okay, I'm surprised he didn't cover this when he was covering the Genesis 3, but the 70 times 7 reference is a moment in Genesis 4 in which God has protected Cain, and to protect Cain, he protects him with 7-fold destruction for anybody who attempts to murder Cain. Now, one of Cain's descendants, Lamech, starts killing people en masse and claims that God is now protecting him 70 times 11, or 7 times 11. So what this references is something that I very much remember as a kid going, okay, couldn't protect Eve in the Garden of Eden, in God's controlled environment, this perfect paradise, but outside of the Garden of Eden can protect A, a murderer, and B, a mass murderer. And my question is that the action of somebody who is competent and able to create the entire world?
Continued hypocrisy in Leviticus 25:44 through 46, we get God giving permission for people to own slaves. Not only was this horrendous if it actually happened back then, but it was used to justify millennia later one of the worst atrocities in human history, the transatlantic slave trade. You may go to the nations around you and buy slaves and own them as property for life and pass them down to your children as inheritance. This is the permission from God himself. The untold harm that this...
Yeah, Earl. He is an amazing speaker. I think he is a professional speaker in real life. At least he is rehearsed to the point where if he isn't, he should be. I don't know what his profession is, but he is so efficient and proficient at his craft. So I completely agree. He is so impressive. So but watching him go through these systematically one by one this is going to be a good time. That's why I stated this is right up Jimmy Tux's alley on why he never became a Christian. Yeah, his delivery's flawless. Yeah. Love his delivery. He apparently very well rehearsed or researched. Yes. Negative Ghost Rider. We are not going to have any flybys. Not tonight. And his delivery is flawless. Thank you, Ron.
One verse has done. Or what about Leviticus 26:29, where God threatens parents with cannibalism of their own children as a punishment for their disobedience? This is the fair and just and beautiful God that you love, who would purposely starve infants and toddlers to death in front of their parents' eyes just to get back at them, and then continue to starve the parents to such a degree that they are forced into one of the most impossible decisions I could ever imagine anyone ever having to deal with? Was that God's only option, or was he just feeling especially creative that day? Moving on to Numbers, we do have a bit of a confusing verse in Numbers 22:22, but God's anger was kindled because he was going, and the angel of the Lord took his stand in the road as his adversary. As his adversary in Hebrew, Satan lo, which literally means as a Satan to him, or to oppose him. It is not a proper name, it is a role. So here we see it more as adversary or opponent. Later we will see it more as accuser. And most importantly in this story, this particular Satan is called what? An angel of the Lord.
I am Malak Hamaway. I am Malak Yahweh, an angel of the Lord.
Divine messenger acting on God's own behalf. This is the story of Balaam, which I covered here in detail if you want more on this. But he just simply...
Yeah, I am like, I said that wrong. I am like Hamasid, an angel of the Lord. An angel of the Spirit.
Blocks the path of Balaam with a sword for God. This is the first use of the Hebrew word Satan in the Bible, and it's not a demonic figure nor an enemy of God, just a loyal angel doing his duty. I think that's very interesting. We'll see that more in 1 Samuel, 1 Kings, and in Job. So I'll cover a bit more when we get to those books. Getting back to what God did, he's still really loving the plague thing back from Egypt. So he's going to continue with that in Numbers 16. We have about 15,000 people that God wipes out for a rebellion. I'm sure each one of them was just totally guilty. Then in Numbers 21, some Israelites who aren't so happy with the conditions they're in now, and fair enough, do a little bit of complaining. And what's hilarious is to listen to Christian apologists talk about this as if the venomous snakes that are sent and kill many of the Israelites were totally normal and just thing to do when someone complains. As if no Christians today are ever ungrateful with their circumstances or a bit gripey about the food they have to eat. If you jump to Numbers 28 and you go through like 31, you're going to get some of the worst parts of the entire Bible. Just see my Secular Bible Study Series episode on Numbers. But I'll just read this quote. "Now kill every male among the little ones, but all the young girls keep alive for yourself." God commands Moses to kill all Midianite males. In fact, there's this scene where some of the younger boys have been left alive. Probably some of the poor, traumatized Israelite soldiers were even having trouble with this one, and Moses freaks out about it. This is not what the Lord commanded. He wants full genocide, except for young virginal girls. Whatever could they be kept alive for, I wonder? Sometimes people don't understand the true horror of this. It's not some 18-year-old girl, as if that makes anything better. Most virginal girls in these societies would have been 14 and younger, the ones that had not yet been married off. If you're a Christian who has a problem with pedophiles, the fact that you have no anger directed at this command from God that you pray to on a daily basis is the height of hypocrisy. But hey, at least we got to hear about that terrible enemy Satan in this book. Not really, though. Let's move into Deuteronomy. There's no mention of Satan or the devil here either. But in chapter 7, you get a declaration from God of genocide against 7 different nations. In chapter 28, we get again God returning to this punishment of forced cannibalism by mothers in a siege.
Yeah. Makes your skin crawl. And I can't quite get into the head of the author during this exchange, but clearly there's a gambler's tale here going on, in which somebody is counting the victories and forgetting the losses. Clearly this is a way to demand total victory without, to me, there's no God to command this. It's just a bunch of humans who are justifying their actions so that they don't have a bothered conscience for time and eternal. BS. Oh, yeah. It's good to see you too. BS. You're like my 1.5 favorite. And yay, everybody loves BS. BS, I would assume you've seen this video already, and I'm doing a reaction. I'm doing a review. I'm just going to chip in and just add some more details that I'm familiar with to this this narrative. And Brandon's doing a fantastic job.
As a curse, not as a natural consequence. I have a whole nother video coming out that is going to be curse or consequence. Because the excuse for a ton of what I've already covered from Christians is, what did you expect to happen? They're at war, things happen, there are sieges, people starve. Completely removing when God says, I will do this, I will cause this, I will bring that nation to come against you like this. God is orchestrating it. He is interfering in free will to cause these things to occur. That is a curse, not a natural consequence. And if you need better evidence of that, I'll give you another verse here, and we'll use this as the third act of God. It's in chapter 32, verse 39. I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. It's this whole little diatribe about God wanting the credit for the bad things. This is not consequence to him. He does this. He creates people knowing what will happen. He creates the harm. He sends the consequence. Give God the credit he demands. That's the Torah. We're through the first 5 books of the Bible, and we are going to pick up the pace here.
Yeah, first 5 books of the Bible. Notice the most amazing being of all time has done all this death and destruction multiple times, enslaved the people, hardened the hearts, complimented humanity maybe a couple of times, but for the most part, what's missing from an amazing God is to teach the Egyptians a better way, to teach and directly inspire the better way. And I don't find that in the first 5 books of the Bible. Now, I think there's other areas in which there's human beings who have a love affair And they want to express that love affair. And many of the romantic writings that are going to come in the next section clearly are that love affair. The authorships are focusing on that love affair. But I don't think there's a display of God actually loving. It's just people loving the power that they've enjoyed, or the blessings that they feel that come from a supernatural being who, especially David doesn't really achieve these victories except through some form of deception and guerrilla warfare. And if he's gotten lucky or if he's gotten good at his craft, great. And he loves whoever he feels he's done that for. But I don't believe that there needs to be a supernatural being in any of this for them to achieve what they did. The person with the weapon against the person with the Neolithic infancies, it's not going to be a contest. And to me, you boil it down to its ultimate conclusion: bad guys were bad guys, and the farmers and their daughters were the prize. Let's see what Earl says here. What was that? something, teach a man to fish, something. That's, yes, exactly. Yes. The most amazing being in the whole wide world clearly teaches murder. Clearly, mass murder. Genocide. In effect, those with the weapons versus those with the farming skills. The army versus the shepherd. The shepherd becoming the military might. That boils it down to its ultimate conclusion.
But this is the law. This is the origin story of everything about this religion. And so far, we have had a serpent and an angel of the Lord. Every horrific, terrible, torturous, cursed thing that has ever happened in these 5 books came straight from God. There is no getting around that whatsoever. One excuse I can hear coming up would be that we're not talking about man. And to that I would ask the Christians, could you make up your mind about how powerful man is against God? We just went through 5 books where God is constantly doing whatever he wants to help or hurt the chosen people. Nothing stops him. Nothing gets in his way. He overcame 400 years of slavery in Egypt that was by his allowance in the first place, defeating the greatest army at that time. Nothing here we're supposed to view as outside of God's control. Quite the opposite. He is demanding full credit and authorship for all of it. So, speeding up now, in Joshua we have no mention of Satan or the devil, but we do have a ton of genocide. One big one is in Joshua 6, where we get the story of Jericho. Only Rahab and her family are spared. You can watch this video to learn a lot more about the issues with that. But God commands that all women, children, men, and animals be slain. The excuses are typically that this is only a war territory, only filled with soldiers. Why is Rahab there? She's not a soldier. Nor is her family, even if she's just there working, but we hear she has family in the city, and that's only if their first excuse of hyperbole fails, which also makes no sense considering the detail of the story, that only Rahab and her family were spared, etc. In Joshua 8, we get a mass execution at Ai, that's Ai, even chasing them out of the city, and when they chase the soldiers out, who do they come back for to continue to thoroughly wipe out? The only people left: women and children. And in Joshua 10, God wants the genocide to keep going, that he performs a miracle to stop the sun in the sky so that the battle can continue, so that it can truly be everyone being wiped out. Again, defeating the idea of hyperbole that is always the go-to excuse for Christians. We gotta kill more Amorites. Keep that sun in the sky, God. Judges, where some of the biggest atrocities in the entire Bible happen, that at the end of the book, God will blame on the people because they did what was right in their own eyes because there was no kings, as if kings are going to make it better. P.S. You'll see in the following books, they don't. So that becomes a ridiculous excuse for what happens in Judges. And by the way, God still interferes a lot in Judges to create a lot of harm. So no Satan or the devil, but we still have the demon Yahweh, which I don't know what else to call him. I'll never not talk about
The demon Yahweh.
Jephthah here, him sacrificing his daughter. No, God did not command it. I'm going to break my own rule for a second, but God allowed it. He took the vow. He didn't say, we don't do that here. Would have been the perfect opportunity to separate him from every other culture that was supposedly doing this, which is, again, the Christian apologetic. No, he helps Jephthah get the military victory with the pre-knowledge of knowing that when he goes home, the first thing that will come out is his young daughter, so happy to see him waving tambourines. And he does go through with it. Read the story. And there's no reason to think it's metaphorical, and he offers her as a living sacrifice to the temple. Man, if there's anything that actually confronting these texts will do, it is actually being able to understand how hypocritical and unfair and dishonest Christians are when they have to try to defend these things. And those are the Christians that have actually read it. Most Christians don't know these stories exist because their pastors won't talk about them, and I wonder why. But we can get back to what God does, like when he purposely empowers Samson to kill thousands of people. Or in Judges 20, where with God's approval, Israel kills 25,000 of its own people after a grotesque rape murder incident, which leads to the abduction of 600 virgin girls from a neighboring tribe, again, which God is fine with. But we have a reprieve. Book 8. Ruth, no mention of either. No Satan, no devil, no Yahweh. Also, no major violence or divine wrath. I wonder if there's anything we can connect there. But enjoy the rest, because now we move straight into 1 Samuel. Now, if we're just reading in Hebrew, this is the next time that we get the mention of Satan, but I'm going to read you the verse it comes from, and that is 1 Samuel 29:4. But the commanders of the Philistines were angry with him, and the commanders of the Philistines said to him, send the man back so that he may return to the place where you have assigned him to be. He shall not go down with us to battle, or he may become an adversary to us in the battle. Adversary, again, being the word Satan. And they're speaking about David, by the way. Many people don't really understand this. It's a really strange thing that happens, and I'm probably taking more time than I should explaining it, but David's in a bit of a hard place. He's living among the Philistines and pretending to serve King Achish, the king of Gath at the time. This king trusts David, and he wants to bring him into battle, but the other Philistine commanders are suspicious, and they should be. Thus the verse that I just read. They fear that David's going to turn on them mid-battle to regain favor with King Saul, whom he's been hiding from amongst these people. Now, we'll
I don't believe this is a reference to the devil. I believe this is lowercase Hasatan, and not proper noun. The Satan. It's just a human reference to a human action, not a proper noun of what is commonly referred to in the Christian as Satan, a being. It's just an action, because the core word is the adversary or the accuser. And when David is referred to as a Satan, it's merely a question mark of is he, or he is the adversary. He is some variation of an infiltration to this army, and not actually one of their prize soldiers, even though he's pretending to be. Or some variation of that.
Never know if he would or wouldn't have. It's a big what if, because he doesn't end up getting to go to the battle. But if we know anything about David's character, see this video. And what David had already been doing, he had already been lying to this king. He had been raiding non-Israelite towns, which is not what he was commissioned to do, and pretending they were Israelite settlements. Anyways, a diatribe. So, again, no real reference to enemy of God, but we do have God, of course, being an enemy to many. In 1 Samuel 6, God kills over 50,000 men for looking at the ark. In 1 Samuel 16:14, man, this one's kind of a weird one too, because God sends an evil spirit to torture, quite literally, to torment and disturb Saul. This is after he removes his favor. So there is an evil spirit but it's working on behalf of God, and it doesn't get a name. It's not a cool story like in Job where we have Satan and God kind of having this little battle. We're just supposed to accept, I guess, that God controls and sends evil spirits to torture people once they lose favor. And how did Saul lose favor? You're all probably sick of hearing me talk about it who have been here for a minute. I don't care, because this is one of the greatest proofs of God's immorality in the Bible, which is the third example. 1 Samuel 15:3, kill men and women, infants and nursing babies, oxen and sheep. This is a command from God to Saul for utter genocide of obviously innocent living creatures. The main excuse again is always hyperbole, but the reason I think the story is so important is because it proves that is not the case, because we get a follow-up. Saul leaves alive the king and a few of the animals. That means when we get that much detail on what was left alive, that he did kill every woman and child and other animal and man. But God is displeased that he did not follow this all the way through to the letter of the law, even though he kept alive these things to sacrifice to God. So he removes his blessing from Saul. He tortures him with an evil spirit that he controls, and he hands over the reins, the anointment, to David, who will actually genocide to the full effect the way that God desires. This single verse in the Bible, I think, and it's hard, might be, for the reasons I just listed, one of the most actual problematic for the Christian to make an excuse that their God is good or just or loving. But moving on to 2 Samuel, we have no mention of Satan, the devil, the enemy, anything like it. But let me give you 3 horrific things God did. First, he pretty much approves of polygamy as well as concubines and essentially what would be rape then. God says he gave David his master's wives. I thought polygamy and this stuff was just something that these broken men did outside of the blessing of God. No, God gave them to him, endorsing and perpetuating this patriarchal violence. Also in
Yeah. It's funny because it sounds an awful lot like Joseph Smith was copying this motif when he created his religion. The multiple wives of, again, Genesis 4, throwback to Genesis 4, and then this story, and, you know, me being able to look through the lens of how the polygamy of Warren Jeffs, and I can't remember the name of the guy who was a lieutenant kind of within the Warren Jeffs camp and started his own in Canada at one of the Warren Jeffs compounds. There's always a narrative that comes out of those, that you have all of these women that are treated as a commodity over and over again. This history repeats every single time, that you create some narrative for these men to go off to battle or get rejected, and then they become a quote unquote they become a quote unquote lost boys or some variation of that. And that's the problem with polygamy. That's the problem that all these wars cause, is a way to extinguish all the when you don't have a 1-to-1 ratio and instead you have a 10-to-1 or 5-to-1 or 25-to-1 ratio of men to women. The biggest contributors are the ones who are rewarded with this commodity. Every single time. Eventually there is a breakdown of that society unless you rid the excess unrewarded males. And you have to maintain that no matter what you do.
2 Samuel 12, he kills David's infant after torturing him for 7 days of illness, and commissions and commands to have David's wives, multiple wives, raped in public. That is...
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. There's... I can't remember the name of the guy. There's a documentary about this kindler, gentler version of Warren Jeffs from the Canadian Gen, and watching the documentary on him. I believe it was on HBO Max. It's been a couple years since I saw it. There was a documentary done about 20 years ago on him-ish, maybe less than 20 years, but between 15 and 20 years. And then there was an updated one about 2 or 3 years ago. And that one focused on what was quote unquote called the Lost Boys.
Punishment for the baby and the wives. Wait, no, that's punishment for David. The baby and the wives were innocent. David was punished because he killed Bathsheba's husband after he had an affair and most likely, in context, raped her. But that's not what he's punished for. He's punished for killing a man. And David gets punished one other time, even though in this verse, and I want you to pay attention to the words here, and then you'll see here in a few minutes something different. But in 2 Samuel 24, God punishes David by punishing Israel because David took a census he wasn't supposed to, that this verse in 24:1 says God incited him to do. So how many people have to die for David's mistake that he did only because God talked him into doing it? 70,000 men. Was it the devil that killed 70,000 men? No, it was God. And because they deserved it? No, because it was collective punishment for the sin of one man. Again, at the behest of God himself. But moving on to 1 Kings, we do have something we can say for this first part. We have a lying spirit. Could someone remind me, who is called the father of lies in the Bible? Is it Yahweh or the devil? It's the devil, isn't it? Shoot. Because who sends the lying spirit? Yahweh. And is the lying spirit the devil? No, it's an agent of God. So again, I'm grasping at straws for anything to put in this first category, but clearly this belongs to God. And we'll move straight into this action leading to 400 prophets being deceived so that God has a bridge to get Ahab killed. Now, just a pro tip, something else that happens here, you're going to want to make sure you never eat food in the wrong place. Otherwise, God will send a...
This is Brandon is quite the street man, isn't he? This is perfect the way he's delivering it. He needs a color man here, and that's how God did it. Oh, God's good. No, come on, Brandon, lighten up.
Lion to kill you if he's consistent like he is in 1 Kings 13:24. A man of God, by the way, not the enemy, is mauled by a lion, again, for eating food in the wrong place. And just so you know that God killing innocent children isn't just a one-off when he did it to David's son, although I've already given more examples than that. He also kills in 1 Kings Jeroboam's son because Jeroboam is wicked. Do you think that's just? If we find out today in court that someone committed a murder, should we punish that person by letting them go free and killing their son? If your answer to that is no, then how do you allow for God to do it? Because he's God? That's a really, really bad excuse. And I'm not sure if I'm at 2 or 3, but in 1 Kings 17, God sends a drought, killing untold innocent people. But it's God's doing and no one else's. But moving on to 2 Kings, again, we have no mention of Satan or the devil, but who needs them when you've got a God like Yahweh? In 2 Kings 6, once again, God allows a siege that leads to cannibalism by innocent mothers that have nothing to do with the conflict. In 2 Kings 19, this God who is so obsessed apparently with giving us free will without being provoked at all and without warning goes and kills the entire Assyrian army, 185,000 people. And who can forget going back to 2 Kings 2, where God has 42 children, young boys, I don't care if they're teens or not, killed by she-bears for mocking Elisha.
Yeah, it's almost like it's almost like tilting Windmill Hill. It's almost like Casey Kasem doing the top 40. And now, here's another one, a great hit. Jesus and God just keep on coming.
Specifically for him being bald. The audacity of how many Christians in my comments think it's an insult.
Shaven men unite.
To call me bald, I don't care. I didn't choose it. Supposedly your God did if he's...
Yeah, that's why I'm angry at God.
real. And he's not a big fan of people using that as an insult. A lot of weird projection from many hateful Christians in these comments. But be careful. if you live in bear territory. Let's move into 1 Chronicles, though. Remember in 2 Samuel when God incited David to take a census and then killed 70,000 men because of it? Well, the good news is we have a contradiction, a real bona fide contradiction. Not that they're hard to come by, because if we read 1 Chronicles 21:1, it is Satan, who is the one that incites David to take the census. Now, it makes more sense when we're honest about what the term Satan means. So Christians, I'm going to let you pick. This can either be Satan as in the devil that you think he is, in which case you have the contradiction of Yahweh inciting David, or the Satan devil character inciting David, or you can be honest about the original Hebrew. And in this case, it's either God inciting or God's agent, Satan, inciting David. And here, God is kind of the one responsible for both, so it's less of a contradiction. I'd still argue it's a contradiction, but it's definitely less than. But then God gets all the credit for inciting David to sin and then choosing to punish 70,000 people that had nothing to do with that incident and taking their lives. Let me know which one you pick.
Yeah, I'm going to reserve my comment on this when he probably gets to Job very shortly. In fact, you know what? Let's do a cheater here and see what the chapters are. Job. So it's coming up in about 4 minutes. So I'm going to reserve my comment to this timestamp here that was about 28 minutes for the 32nd minute.
And I don't want to be redundant. We have a lot of crossover between the books of Samuel and the books of Chronicles. So we're just going to leave the rest of that book alone. That's the main thing I wanted to highlight. We'll move into 2 Chronicles, though, where we have no mention of the enemy of any kind. But here we see in chapter 24, God approve of temple massacre. In 26, we see God use leprosy to kill a king for burning incense in the temple. Or in 36, the tables finally get turned on Israel. And God starts using a different nation to do his dirty work. And he commissions Babylon to come and take over Jerusalem, burning the city and slaughtering the people, which later will be framed even within the Old Testament, still giving credit to God all the while through. When Babylon has to be punished, God sends in the Persians to do that. It's his will to get revenge on them for what they did to his people, even though what they did to his people was him. And yet Christians will jump for joy and cheer about the deliverance of the people from Babylon by God's righteous hand, making everything good. When it's like, no, he's just doing the rounds of punishing people using different nations to do so. It's wild. It's kind of fun to do this all at once. You know, I do these different lists and a lot of these stories do get a little redundant. I apologize. But just to see it played out in succession, well, in canon order, again, that's not quite the same exact order that we would need chronologically, but it's pretty wild. So I hope you're enjoying it. And if you are, again, please leave a like, a comment, watch all the way through, share the video, do all the things that help. Let's move into Ezra. No mention of the enemy, but Ezra 4 gives us more of the in-group, out-group justification as outsiders are not allowed to build the temple. In Ezra 9, we see God justifying the exile that he did, blaming it on Israel, bringing it upon themselves instead of, you know, the divine wrath that it so clearly was. And if you really want some insight into this God, I would encourage everybody here to read Ezra 10, 3-11, or see my video about it, where God breaks up families, sending away all foreign wives. And
that sounds like a great idea. BS, you should join me for that. I think that's a good idea. I'll also go up and probably take a chance to kiss Mrs. Tux right about that time. Let me see. We'll see.
And their children, causing mass family separation and, honestly, in those conditions at that time, death. This is what's so funny, is a lot of the justification for taking those little girls as sex slaves was that, well, if Israel hadn't done that, they would have died. So God is gracious. Where's God's grace then here? And again, to be fair, it is Ezra himself that does this commission, but it's enforced. God never speaks out against it. We see his permission here. And at this time in the Bible, the last 15 books we've covered, we see God showing often when he disagrees with one of his people doing something he doesn't like. So you just don't get to play those cards. Nehemiah, no mention of the enemy. But again, through Nehemiah for some of this, so I'm going to let up on God a little bit. We have a mass Sabbath enforcement, which is problematic. More purging of intermarriage, also allowed by God. And then there's a whole thing on this purity reform, where you have entire groups barred from the priesthood. Again, just reinforcing the tribalism and all of the other nonsense that supposedly Jesus fixes, even though he is God and even though God is immutable. But whatever. Moving on to book 17, Esther. We have no mention of the enemy, but we do have divinely permitted vengeance killing of 75,000 people in retribution. But God is left out of this book quite a bit. If anything, the book, when you think about like the blessings of Esther, what Esther had to do to protect her people, which is an amazing story, but still through the view of a perfect God, shows a lot of harm. So we'll just let God off the hook for Esther too. But now we get to Job. What is this, our third instance of the word Satan being used in the Old Testament? 18 books in. And here, this Satan actually does some harm. The worst of it being he kills the 8 children of Job. So let's be fair. He killed
10 children of Job. And all but one servant.
8 children. He's behind a couple 100,000 at this point in comparison to God, but he did it. But he only did it with God's express permission and allowance.
So what does that say?
It says as much. And what a weak God that he gets incited in and allowance. It says as much. And what a weak God that he gets incited into this in the first place, which also is directly stated in Job. We have God saying essentially, well, you talked me into it. And to be fair, he also tortures Job and destroys Job's property. So yeah, he's on a...
Right. So back to that 28-minute mark. This is the moment in which a proper pronoun, a pronoun is used for an adversary of God. And I believe here in Job, it is also used as the proper pronoun. And the question is, in the story of Job and that story of First Chronicles, it's clear to me that these things aren't happening by the Hasatan character. These things are a form of filling out a requisite, submitting it, and God is fulfilling that requisite. The Hasatan character does not have check writing capabilities out of the bank account of God. God has to write that check. Every payment that's required has to have the signature on that check. And I don't believe that you have the Hasatan character in Job 1 and 2 writing that check. Merely the check request is being submitted and God is signing off on that request. Let's see what... So it's more like this. I don't believe that in Job 1:16, fire coming from heaven, you have a contrast on whether heaven is hell. If fire comes from heaven, that doesn't sound very much like heaven. In the control of what kills everything on the farm, everything in the house, and the answers that are given all sound an awful lot like God does it, and he merely has this subordinate. He merely has this employee. So you're either rooting for the Hasatan character or the Hasatan's boss. And it's the same thing with First Chronicles. It's merely an employee that goes and shows up and does the dirty deed. And in several researches into this, it's basically a moment in which the tribe of Israel is clearly having an issue with their monotheistic God, stating as such, hey, we can't have all this death, destruction, non-teacher being who teaches us, and all these bad things are constantly happening. There has to be another version of it. And so we're going to make that the adversary. Hey, native atheist. Oh boy. Hey, it's good to see you. Better late than never. Hey, we still got a ways to go. We're only halfway through. All right, let's go back to...
Bit of a rampage here. But again, do we not just trickle this up to God? If it was God sending Satan to do...
Yeah. It specifically says fire of God. So, where does fire come from? Heaven or hell? According to Job 1:16, it comes from God. And if you continue that all this destruction is coming from God, it's not coming from the Hasatan character. It may have been requested, but the God had to fill that request and chose to do it that way. It's Satan's will with God's power. Now apply that reasoning to Jesus. He's the Son of God.
This. Christians love to use this story because it's one of the only ones they can in the Old Testament to show how evil the devil is, that he would kill children while ignoring every other instance I gave where God has also killed children, and the fact that Satan could only do this because God allowed it. So what would my three things be for God? It would be all the same horrible things that happen. Job's workers that are killed, Job's torture, Job's dead children, and even worse, the insult of thinking he can replace these things. Or the chapters-long diatribe he goes on about why he could do these things and who is Job to question him. Go read Job 38 through 41 and tell me this is a good character. Truly one of the most appalling books of the Bible. And again, in my Secular Bible Study Series episode, I think I make it really clear why the apologetics fail. Moving on to the Psalms, though, very large book, and we have one reference. Let me read it for you. Psalm 109:6. They say, "Appoint a wicked man against him. Let an accuser stand on his right." Again, we have the Hebrew word Satan being used here, but not as a proper noun. And here we just have the psalmist asking God to bring ruin against his enemy. It's more likely a human legal opponent here. It would be like if someone prayed when they perceived that something wrong happened to them, that God would ensure that justice is done, that they'd get sued, they'd go to jail, whatever. This is not the enemy that we think of when we talk about Satan. But in terms of what God does here, a lot of the horrific things in the Psalms is actually our sweet psalmist praying or begging God to do horrible things to people that they think deserve it. Sometimes they happen, sometimes we just hear about the request, but either way, it's lifted up as these are sweet. These are something to learn from. This is the poetic heart representing God. After all, isn't David a man after God's own heart? You mean a man that constantly thinks about his enemies getting violent retribution? Like, happy is the one who seizes your infants and dashes them upon the rocks. But we won't give too much credit to God. In Proverbs, we have no mention of the enemy, but we do have instruction from traditionally authorship goes to Solomon, the wisest man that ever lived. And where did he get his wisdom? From God. So by transitive property, we can give some of these wise things credit to God, like beating your children, or in Proverbs 10, attributing wealth or despair to one's righteousness. That doesn't set up a whole ton of harm for the next few millennia. Or the support for the submission of women, like in the Proverbs 31 woman that all women should ascribe to be like. But let's move on to one of my favorite books of the Bible, and not only can you, of course, watch the Secular Bible Study series on it, but you can see me and Joe Foley have a conversation about this book that I think many of you might enjoy if you haven't seen that. No mention of the enemy, of course, and not really really any in particular act that we can pin on God, but we get a lot of teaching here about what's important, and ultimately it's to fear God or else. So there's that. Song of Songs is also going to be a nothing burger on both sides. Just a bit of erotica as a break from all the divine wrath. But let's move into Isaiah, where we do have a verse where Christians will typically attribute this as like the Satan. Let me read Isaiah 14:12. How you are fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn, how you are cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low. In Hebrew, we get a translation that is the shining one, the son of dawn. In the Latin Vulgate, we get the word Lucifer, again meaning light bearer or morning star. And again, this Christian confusion is never cleared up by all of the pastors and priests who definitely know better. They play into it. They've made up their own little fan fiction about this story of the fallen Lucifer and his possession over the earth and other things that will get drawn out more in the New Testament because of Greco-Roman influence, but here in the Old Testament simply do not exist. This verse is part of a taunt against the king of Babylon. This is not a narrative about Satan. Like, contextually, we know this. Yes, it uses cosmic and poetic imagery. What happened?
You're much appreciated. Thank you, BS. You're the best.
To Christians utilizing context. But again, it's just to mock Babylon's king for his great arrogance and his fall from power. The phrase fallen from heaven is metaphorical, a political downfall, not a celestial one, not a divine one, except that God caused it to happen. But you can blame, again, the Latin Vulgate, some New Testament Christianity, and really Paradise Lost from John Milton for how this all got so twisted, so wrong. And a lot of the church fathers who also linked this in Isaiah to a particular verse in Luke 10 that we'll get into in the New Testament. But again, in context, and it's a sad day when it's the atheist who has to provide this for the Christian. Isaiah 14 is talking about a human king. But what does God do in Isaiah? Well, he threatens more cannibalism. In Isaiah 66, he slaughters by fire and the sword. And if you just go read Isaiah chapters 13 through 24, you can see a long procession of destruction against Moab, Assyria, Babylon, and others. Just, boasting in his divine wrath. Moving on to Jeremiah. For the enemy, we have none. But in Jeremiah 4, God purposely deceives his own people via false prophets. Again, in Jeremiah 19, he threatens starvation and cannibalism. And in Jeremiah 25, he once again uses Babylon to punish the disobedience of his own people. Now, you might be saying, well, he's God. He can do what he wants. He gave laws to his people, they broke them, they're getting punished. But first, ask yourself, is the punishment fair? And second of all, again, all the modern day excuses against the problems of evil and suffering are about God having to respect our free will. And story after story after story.
That was a bad pause. BS is making an acronym out of best. Come on, man. So I want to back up a little bit because I want to see where he was going with this free will.
About God having to respect our free will. And story after story after story here is anything but that. It is God literally taking credit for commanding and controlling, like a risk board, moving one group, an enemy group, into them to destroy them, to enslave them, to cause them to eat their own children, and on and on and on. Next is Lamentations, a book that by its very name you would think, oh, the woe, the sorrow that must have been caused by the enemy, except once again, it's never the enemy doing it. We have no mention of any enemy here. Just God. Read Lamentations 2, where God admits to destroying his own people. Lamentations 4, again, women eating their own children. I'm not going to not keep harping on that. I want to point it out every single time it comes up, and I've actually already missed a few. And specifically is an enemy to Israel, not a good parent, not a father, not a leader, an enemy. Like an enemy, he has strung his bow. His right hand is ready. Like a foe, he has slain all who were pleasing to the eye. He has poured out his wrath like fire on the tent of daughter Zion. This is God's word describing God as an enemy, as a foe, not Satan, not the devil. I just think it's really interesting when you get that specific verbiage that is used in what we would typically think of as the demonic forces being referred to by God as God himself. Moving into Ezekiel, we have another one of those that is often misconstrued, and I want to break it down referring to Satan. Let's read this one together. Ezekiel 28:12-17. You were the signet of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. You were blameless in your ways from the day that you were created until iniquity was found in you. I cast you to the ground. I exposed you before kings to feast their eyes on you. Now, you can see, and for good reason, why many Christians upon a basic plain reading will say, oh, you were there in Eden. You were cast to the ground. But let's look at the context of the passage at large. This is a lament for the king of Tyre, a wealthy and proud and powerful ruler. Yes, it's using mythic and poetic imagery, similar to what we saw in Isaiah, but it's describing the rise and fall of the king from the good to the bad, using its own internal imagery. Specifically, there's a part of the text that calls him an anointed cherub, which, again, there's contradiction there. If you do want to take that, when you mix it with things from Revelation, Satan, Lucifer, the devil, whatever, was not a cherub. That's a very specific kind of definition of angel. Again, it's just poetic language here. It's just symbolic of splendor. And again, we can thank the church fathers for tying this in for us. But in the original context, Ezekiel is clearly talking about a human king. The chapter begins with, Son of man, raise a lamentation over the king of Tyre. Like, how much more clear does it need to be? How disingenuous on purpose, well, I guess that's what that means, do you have to be to read that chapter, get to that part, forget how it started, and then map it on the way you want by misappropriating metaphor, which is what, again, the atheist gets accused of all the time. We have no demons, no evil spirits, no devil, and no Satan in this book. But we do have a lot of horrific judgment from God. Like in Ezekiel 24, where he kills Ezekiel's wife and forbids mourning her. So much for family values. Or go read Ezekiel 25-32, where again, God is bragging and taking credit for the mass destruction of nations. Or Ezekiel 23, you know what? I'm going to read you a part of Ezekiel 23. This is God using degrading threats against Israel by personifying it as a woman or women. Yet she became more and more promiscuous as she recalled the days of her youth when she was a prostitute in Egypt. There she lusted after her lovers, whose genitals were like those of donkeys and whose emissions were like that of a horse. So you longed for the lewdness of your youth when in Egypt your bosom was caressed and your young breast fondled. Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says, I will stir up your lovers against you, those you turned away from in disgust, and I will bring them against you from every side. I will turn you over to them for punishment, and they will punish you according to their standards. I will direct my jealous anger against you, and they will deal with you in fury. They will cut off your nose and your ears, and those of you who are left will fall by the sword. They will take away your sons and daughters, and those of you who are left will be consumed by fire. They will also strip you of your clothes, and I am about to deliver you into the hands of those you hate, to those you turned away from in disgust. They will deal with you in their hatred and take away everything you have worked for. They will leave you stark naked, and the shame of your prostitution will be exposed. It just goes on and on and on, essentially just describing in sexual violence as the personification metaphor what God is going to do as he has these men, these nations, utterly destroy these women, these people. That's your good God. It wasn't
Yeah, that's your good God.
Satan saying this. It wasn't the devil.
Wasn't the devil saying it. Wasn't some great teacher
saying this or commanding this or making it happen, nor was it just man or natural consequence. Let's move into Daniel, and really there's only one section in Daniel 10 where we could at all connect this to Satan, demonic forces, etc. And it's interesting too because Daniel was actually written much later than what is typically attributed to, and we start to see some of the same Greco-Roman influences in it, which makes sense for the timing. It's a very
it probably wasn't, well, it was it was prior to Rome being in that area, but that area was under contention between Rome and Greece for a little more like about 100 years later is when the Roman part of that Greco occurred, to my understanding.
Fascinating and mysterious passage in the Bible, and it requires much more of a deep dive than we're going to do now, but here's a few things to know. So contextually, Daniel has been praying and fasting. It's been 3 weeks. He is seeking a vision. An angelic being finally arrives and explains that he was delayed by a spiritual appointment. So it's kind of our first sign of supernatural warfare. At least that's how many Christians interpret it. But then it's stated that it's the Prince of Persia. But then another figure, the Archangel Michael, shows up to help him break through. And then we get this thing when he's done, he still has to go back and finish fighting the Prince of Persia. And then after that, the Prince of Greece will come. So here it seems to be this conflation or combination, if you will, where yes, they're real rulers of the earth, these princes are, but they're understood to be also spiritual beings, just associated with earthly empires. So I'm fine with however you interpret this. Let's say that the Prince of Persia is 100% a dark demonic force. All he did was make Daniel have to pray maybe an extra week until Michael could come help out. That's it. Moving into the minor prophets now. We have the book of Hosea, and we have no reference to Satan, the devil, or anything like it. But we do have God commanding Hosea to take a sex worker as a wife, which is problematic for a few reasons that need better explanation. In Hosea 5, God brags about how he is the lion that will carry off and none can be rescued, even though that's the same imagery we get in the New Testament for the devil. And in Hosea 13:16, where God is once again threatening what he will do, we have the little ones dashed to pieces and even the pregnant.
Yeah, the reference is what consumes you. The lion is what consumes you, and usually this is a reference to what causes you to sin, or what, when it's used in the New Testament, it's my understanding that it's more like if you are addicted to whatever it is that you're obsessed with, that is the lurk, that is the consumption that is affectionately referred to as the devil.
Women ripped open. That's God's idea of divine wrath. Where's all this divine mercy I always hear about? In Joel, we have no mention, but in Joel 1, God is called the Destroyer. Again, something that usually Christians only call the devil. I think that's what's funny, and maybe that's what I should have done, is listed all the things Christians say the devil is, and then just show where God says he's actually those things. God is the Destroyer. God is the lion. In Joel 2, and there's a few things here, so I'm just going to move on, but God sends an army, is what he calls it, of locusts to, of course, destroy the land as punishment. In Amos, we have absolutely nothing on the enemy. Yet in Amos 4:10, we have this really weird admittance from God where he says, I did all these horrible things to you and still you don't turn your face to me. Why won't you come back to me? I sent pestilence. I killed all your men. What's going on? God promises fire and destruction in Amos 1. And in Amos 9, captivity is not enough. God says he will hunt them down and kill them all. Again, his divine retribution. In Obadiah, nothing from the enemy, but we do have God decreeing the total destruction of Edom, which is associated with Esau, which he chose in the womb to hate for no reason, and then bless Jacob for stealing the birthright, but that's a whole nother thing. In Obadiah 1:18, he helps out with more genocide, and in Obadiah 1:15, he says, as you have done, so it shall be done to you, which again, you might justify as God's divine wrath, and it's okay, but we're supposed to believe this late into the Old Testament that this is the same character of God as the Trinity, the one and the same of the Father, Jesus, who says to turn the other cheek, eye for eye, turn the other cheek. We have some real problems here in the nature, the immutability, and the character of God. Jonah, all that bad stuff is happening in Jonah. You know, Nineveh is threatening to be destroyed unless they turn and repent. Who's going to destroy them? The devil? Satan? Nope. God. God wants someone to go send a message to them, but when that person doesn't want to do it, God's not only willing to kill him, but to kill anyone he comes into contact with, like the other men on the boat, unless he complies? Tell me again about
accomplish this.
free will. And yeah, things worked out well in that story only because they did what God wanted them to do. Just like when Jonah did what God wanted to do, everything worked out. Wait, it's almost like God will literally threaten to kill you unless you obey him. And where is Satan or the devil in all of this? Nowhere. He's not needed, which is really how you could wrap up the whole Old Testament. Who needs Satan or the devil when you have Yahweh? Who needs a cosmic
Yeah, which is it? You wouldn't worship the devil, folks. Would you worship the devil's boss?
enemy when you have the cosmic creator? It's the same thing. But we're almost done. We're going to move quick here. Most of these don't have a reference, by the way. There's nothing in Micah, but we do have plenty more divine wrath and promises of destruction. But we also have another interesting one, Micah 3:4, where God purposely hides his face. He refuses to answer the cries of his people. Oof, I feel like I've heard from way too many Christians that if I just reach out, if I just earnestly seek, God will turn toward me. And yet, here we have an example of him purposely doing the opposite. Wouldn't it be cool if Christians represented their God in the way that God represents himself in their own holy book? Imagine that. In Nahum, we have absolutely nothing on Satan or the devil, but we do hear that the Lord is jealous and avenging. We have more threats on Nineveh of sexual violence. Again, that personification and metaphor of molestation. I will lift your skirt up over your face and throw filth at you, and it goes on. Oh, and more infants being dashed, this time on every corner of every street. Nothing in Habakkuk, just more God using the Babylonians for his violent judgment. Also in 1:13, we have a prophet that pretty much calls God evil, or at least enabling evil, which shouldn't be a surprise. After all, in Isaiah, God claims he is the author of evil. Also more holy wars because of this God. In Zephaniah, we have nothing on Satan or the devil, but you can read Zephaniah 1:2-3, where he says, I will utterly sweep away everything. And like God likes to do, he's very specific. Humans and animals, total annihilation. More boasting about how it was he who cut off cities and destroyed them to utter waste, how their blood will be poured out like dust and their flesh like shit. That's as close to the translation as it is. No mention in Haggai, but in 1:9-11, we hear God himself say that he called for a drought, punishing Israel for neglecting his temple, his house. You didn't take care of my house, I won't take care of yours. Here's famine. And again, more threats and more bragging. It's just getting old at this point, isn't it? Man, this God never changes till the New Testament. And then
This is where you need a color man to really come in and really boost this up. But you know, God, he really can put on a show. And that's the way we like it.
and there's good reason for it. It's pretty interesting. You just need a 400-year period of totally new circumstances for the Jewish people to find themselves in, and all these new influences. And then we get a new God, quite literally.
Yeah. I mean, what good would the video game be, Grand Theft Auto, if you just couldn't go out and steal people's cars and beat up hookers and go into the fast food restaurant and get yourself a salad?
Literally. But I'm thinking we're going to need to make the New Testament a part 2. So let's finish this out real quick. The next one is Zechariah, which does have a mention we should talk about. So let me read you the verse first. This is Zechariah 3:1-2. Then he showed me the high priest Joshua standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to accuse him. And the Lord said to Satan, the Lord rebuke you, O Satan. The Lord who has chosen Jerusalem rebuke you. Is not this man a brand plucked from the fire? So here we have the Hebrew word ha-satan, ha-Satan, meaning the accuser or the adversary. Again, a title or role, not a name. We have, in context, it's like a heavenly courtroom scene that's unfolding. Something we've seen before, the divine council. But it's similar to what happened with Job, just not as much follow through. We have an accusation here as Joshua, the high priest, is on trial. The angel of the Lord functions like a presiding judge over what is essentially a comparison for Israel itself, not just Joshua. You have Satan acting as the prosecutor, trying to prove Joshua unfit for priestly service. God, or the angel of the Lord speaking for God, or it's not always clear, rebukes Satan, makes an argument against him, affirming Joshua's acceptance, and thus Israel's restoration. That's it. But people read that and they hear rebuking Satan, and they're just so filled with all the other context and indoctrination that they think, no, look, even in the Old Testament, here it is. No, it's not at all the same. But even if it was, what can we attribute here to the evil enemy, destroyer, deceiver? He makes an accusation, gets overridden, by the way. It's not like he usurps the throne and causes terror. That's it. But then you have God, who in this very book tells parents to be willing to kill, to pierce through their own children if they happen to be false prophets. He's talking about apocalyptic plagues that will rot the flesh right off the bone. And in a hilarious verse, God says he will no longer have pity. Where, pray tell, has all this pity been? God removes his mercy from Israel. Well, shit. What could that possibly look like after everything else he's already done to them? And then we move on to our final book, Book 39 of the Old Testament, Malachi. No mention of any Satan or devil of any kind. But we do have God once again cursing Edom, saying, if they rebuild, I will tear down. Like, I will never forgive them, that merciful God of ours. Or in Malachi 2:3, when he even says, I will rebuke your offspring and throw shit in your face. And Malachi 4:1 will be the last verse we talk about today, where God warns, the day is coming, burning like an oven. All the arrogant will be stubble. Just fiery judgment threats for the wicked. Nothing new. Doesn't that seem like it should be coming from that horrific enemy? Why are we warned about the devil when we have this God? So, we will indeed do this as two parts. Wrapping up the Old Testament, I hope you see how crazy this is. Keep in mind, I limited myself to 3 for God for each book. But some of these books have like 30 or 40 of like God saying, here's what I'm doing, here's what I did, here's what I'm commanding, of true terror and horror against actual innocence. And even when people aren't innocent, is this justifiable to anyone else for anything else, or just because it's God, just because he's most powerful and because of what he can do to you? If divine command theory is all you have as an excuse for this, how utterly lost you are.
Yeah, I refer to this as my inner black woman. God is good.
And again, I don't care if we're going to get to some of the stuff in the New Testament, which we absolutely will, that has more of the devil in the way that you think of them and demons in the way that you think of them. Because if this is the setup, the thousands of years that are covered in the Old Testament of an immutable God, where we don't have hell or the devil or demons in this same way, maybe it's because it's an add-on. Right? Maybe it's because something changed. And since God is immutable and didn't change, maybe it's because of the influences that changed, the people that were oppressing them, and the ideas they had about their gods and their devils. Doesn't that seem to track and make a whole lot more sense? We just went through so many examples, but tell me, other than in Job, was it Satan or the devil that killed thousands of children, that threatened cannibalism, that permitted slavery under the right conditions, that ordered genocides, that ordered rape as punishment, that commissioned young girls as sex slaves, who interfered in free will and hardened hearts and changed minds and sent evil spirits and tortured people? Or was it Yahweh? And again, I can't give enough examples to really do justice to everything this God claims responsibility for in the Old Testament, which would also include the allowance of what he did have Satan do in Job, or even the evil itself that is in the world. And so in part 2, one of the big things we're going to be doing is looking at the theological invention that grew over time, because that's all that the devil is. And that, for people who are deconverting and still have such a fear of hell and Satan and the devil and demons, should be a relief. This is mythology. We can track it. We can see it. We can follow its evolution. We can understand the influences of the Persians or the Second Temple period or the Greco-Roman philosophy and mythology itself. It was pretty clear that the villain in the Old Testament was God. And so the New Testament has to work pretty hard to change the bad guy. So if you want part 2 to happen, Show Me the Love for Part 1. Thank you so much for being here. This was hopefully a unique one that you enjoyed. But more than finding any enjoyment in hearing about this or seeing it side by side, I hope that it's useful in understanding, again, forget the New Testament for now, in the Old Testament, all of the things that are utilized incorrectly by Christians for power, for fear, for control. They don't exist. There is no devil in the Old Testament. And the Satans that we have are nothing like what they've been portrayed to you as. I'll see you Tuesday with a new episode that I'm excited to share with you. And until then, keep thinking. I wanted to personally thank my top tiers of support, my Iconoclast, Ann, Boris, Grant, GVI, Jimmy, Joe, Kiboga, Matthew, Perry, and Sean, my Humanist Heroes, Craig, James, Jared, Christy, and Matthew, my Atheist Advocates, Aquitar, Caleb, Dan, David, Drew, Jeff, Jeffrey, Julie, Malcolm, Paul, Sparky, and Thomas, as well as all of my Secular Scholar patrons. If you believe in the mission of this channel, please consider joining these fine people.
Okay. So I'm going to take a break. Go see what Mrs. Tux is up to. And then I'm going to look, I think I'm going to read the comments as BS is suggested. And do that. So, I don't have anything to play. Let's see. What should I do here? You know what? I got an idea. Let's put on BS. Let's put on BS's, let's put on BS's, what video should we put on? Oh, I see the problem. Let's switch. All right, let's get BS's, let's get his video about, should we do Checkmate Jesus? I don't know. I think, let's go with my favorite one, which is this one right here.
Like this video, you will surely die within 1,000 years.
And I will be right back. We'll use this as filler. This is the best damn filler ever.
Hey, before I was born again, I famously presented a challenge to non-Christians that I like to refer to as Lewis's trilemma for the Trinitarian Son of God. It essentially states that after reading the Bible, and specifically the 4 gospel accounts of the life of Jesus, the reader is left with a choice to determine whether Jesus is liar, lunatic, or Lord. Well, it didn't take long for people to realize that my clever argument was actually a false trilemma. By rejecting all 3 choices and accepting a 4th option, none of the above. Not to say that Jesus had actually lied himself, but others had lied about him, and a legend was born. Now, I present to you a 5th option, that if true has dire consequences for you and every Abrahamic faith in the world. In fact, all of reality as we know it. It is all of the above. Jesus is a liar and a lunatic and a Lord.
I reject your assertion, sir.
Look, everybody, it's our friends Circular Apologetics. How are you today?
Infinitely better than you. I still don't know why you haven't come to the logical conclusion to kill yourself yet.
It's nice to see you too. Have you come to defend the faith?
Yes, it's only logical that the all-powerful and all-knowing God needs me to stand up for him.
Makes sense. You have objections to the all of the above conclusion?
It's absurd. You can't correctly read the Bible and come to the all of the above conclusion.
Everybody reads the Bible differently. It's kind of the point of the challenge, to read it for yourself and make a decision based on your subjective reading comprehension and existing belief system.
No, you need to pray for the Holy Ghost to help you interpret the Bible correctly.
It doesn't make sense to exercise faith in a belief that you haven't made a decision on yet. Besides, it's my understanding that one doesn't receive the Holy Ghost until after they have decided that Jesus is Lord. So one should expect no supernatural guidance in making this decision.
If he is a liar, he could be lying about being the Lord, thereby not being the Lord and a liar, or all of the above.
I would argue that there has been many lords, or people in authority, who have been both liars and lunatics. A lord is a lord whether he truthfully inherits a kingdom or cunningly manipulates others to submit to him. The themes of insurrection, exalting oneself, or resurrection, the exaltation by others, has been prominently displayed upon the world stage in the last couple years. This seems especially relevant with certain allegations of lying, cheating, stealing, and fake news that has caused much division over the 2020 U.S. presidential election.
There's your problem. Jesus is not just a Lord, he is the Lord of Lords, capital L, Son of God who is God himself. His very nature of omnibenevolence prevents him from lying, and his omniscient nature prevents him from suffering delusions. You need to adjust your chart because it's inaccurate.
Again, the decision hasn't been made, so the reader hasn't come to the conclusion whether if Jesus is Lord of Lords or God in the flesh. I will adjust the chart, but it must be distributed uniformly to grasp the gravity of the dilemma which is going to be presented.
Oh, God, no.
The name of all of the above is Lucifer. And the question that no Christian can honestly answer is this: is all of the above possible with God? Before you answer, remember that once upon a time, God allowed a Nakash, a shiny brazen serpent that he had created to be craftier than any animal, free access to roam the garden and deceive humanity with the lie that they would live forever. Later, after complaining about the deplorable conditions that the Lord had led his children into in the wilderness, God sent venomous snakes to attack and kill them. As they cried out for mercy, God commanded Moses to exalt a graven image of the bronze serpent to heal them from the wounds which he had inflicted. Then finally, generations after the events in the wilderness, the people of Israel began to idolize their savior, the bronze serpent, or BS for short. When the good King Hezekiah, the greatest king Israel had ever known, saw fit to destroy the bronze serpent because the Israelites had placed it in direct competition with the worship of the one true God of Israel, Jesus compares himself to this graven image idol, and if the bronze serpent typology is taken in the proper context, Hezekiah did well to destroy it when the people elevated it to a place equal to God's, hence the Trinity. The Gospel of John states that the devil was a murderer from the beginning. But strangely enough, if you are a Berean and search the scriptures diligently, you will never find a confirmed kill attributed to Satan himself, except for the strange case of the murder of Job's 10 children in the Book of Job. Now, the Book of Job is actually believed to be by many scholars the oldest book in the Bible, and if structured in chronological order would be the beginning of the scriptures. Here is where Christians will have a major problem when trying to attribute the murders of the beginning of scriptures to the being they think of as Satan.
I like how I make an appearance
speaking,
in the...
If the glove doesn't fit,
in the
they must
there.
acquit. In a test of Job's loyalty, Job's children were killed when a mighty wind came out of the desert, collapsed the house they were in, and crushed them all to death. If you ask any Christian who alone has power over the winds and the waves, they will tell you it's either Jesus Christ or the Father himself. This is the equivalent of a Norseman telling you that Loki committed a murder with Thor's hammer Mjolnir, which he is completely incapable of wielding. So this means that somebody's lying about the supernatural murder of Job's children, or Jesus just isn't who you think he is.
That's right.
So to summarize the case against Christ, we have motive in the case of Job that God is willing to test the loyalty of his subjects, which would include the children of Israel in the first century surrounding the life of Jesus. We have precedent in the case of the bronze serpent which God exalted, knowing that it would become an idol that would be in direct conflict with his worship. But most importantly, we have evidence of a murder weapon that has Jesus' fingerprints all over it, placing him at the scene of the crime in the first supernatural murder in all of recorded scriptures. So again I ask, is all of the above possible with God? This question is at the heart of the unpardonable sin when the Pharisees are accusing Jesus of casting out demons in the name of an evil spirit, and is especially relevant to you if you can trust your Lord and Savior. So recall the verse at the intro of this video, and if you do believe the inerrancy of scriptures, here's Braxton Hunter with the definitely not idolatrous Trinity Radio to make you an offer you can't refuse.
Let's finish with a pretty common one. If you found out today to your satisfaction that Christianity were true, would you accept God's authority, repent of your sins, and trust Jesus as your king?
All right, that's brilliant. That is brilliant. Let me add me back to this. All right. Let's read some schmutz here. All right. We want to hit newest first. That way there's no YouTube hiddens. Let's see. Here's a comment. Wouldn't it be cool if Christian represented their God in a way God represents himself in their own book? I'm looking forward to we need an Alex O'Connor collab. Let's see what he says. I've tried. That's good. It's a shame Satan never got to write a book the way that God did, because I'm sure he'd have his own side of the story. But thank you, Brandon, for trying to keep things balanced between God and Satan for the Bible. I'd say Satan came out pretty good. That's funny. That's good. You think you like checkmate? Oh, yeah. I think I didn't choose that one because of bias. So it is a very good video. It's very nice. I might have to switch screens here because my bifocals are messing up trying to read it up there. But if I do it that way, then I don't have control over the screen too. So maybe I'll switch it. Let's see. I probably don't need to change much. Let's see. There was a reply to that. Let's see what it says. Worthless fools, an arrogant, cruel, merciless, and a hateful person on earth who 1. Hate and slander their co-humans as worthless and undeserving of being honored and respected, and 2. Glorify and exalt themselves as greater, powerful, glorious, higher, and superior than Jesus Christ are obviously hurt, wounded, angered, and offended by the truth, which is capitalized, that loving, kind, respectful, and submissive persons on earth who, we got to start over. We had 1, 2 up here, and now we have 1 again. Who, 1, willingly submit to the authority of Jesus Christ in their obedience to what's written in Matthew 28:18, and are also loving, kind, respectful to their co-human in obedience to what's written in Matthew 22:39, will definitely be honored and rewarded by the Creator with eternal life and existence on earth without suffering, pains, griefs, sickness, and death, as written in Revelations 21:3 and 4, and the unbiblical teachings of the enemies of Jesus Christ about heaven and hell, afterlife, Armageddon, evolution, rapture, immortality of the soul, Trinity, and reincarnation clearly bring the cause, the dishonor, disgrace, shame, downfall, and external deaths of worthless fools and arrogant, cruel, merciless, and hateful worshippers and slaves of Satan, the devil, exposed by Jesus Christ as the father of lies and murderer of human beings, as written in John 8:44, while the teachings of Jesus Christ about the kingdom of God, resurrection of the dead, written in Luke 4:43 and John 11:25-26, are the guarantee that all loving, kind, respectful, and submissive persons on earth who died recently and thousands of years ago, like Abel, Noah, Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Job, King David, Jesus Christ's disciples and followers, and many others, will all be resurrected back to life in the night, in the right and proper time, so they can happily and abundantly live and exist on earth forever as submissive and obedient subjects and citizens of the kingdom of God, and fully enjoy the eternal love, kindness, goodness, generosities, compassions, favors, and blessings of the Creator and His Christ for eternity, under the loving and kind rulership, guidance, and protection of Jesus Christ as Creator's chosen King and ruler of heavens and earth, as written in Revelation 11:15. Finn. Okay. Javelin Bond 7854. What do you want to bet? Javelin Bond. He replied multiple times. He copy and pasted the same thing multiple times to multiple respondents. On this channel, he's posted 100+ times. Javelin, that was powerful. I recommend everybody grab your favorite choice. The drink of choice this evening is a Warsteiner from Germany, a nice little Pilsner. And we're going to pour ourselves a little, oh yeah, a tasty beverage. All right. Javelin Bond. What's the Vegas odds that he is a AI generated bot? Let's see. If any of this was true, Christianity, the Bible, and you were the devil, would you mess with the holy book? Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's a good question. Look what we got here. Javelin Bond. with the fresh copy and paste. Wow. Why would I be allowed to? That's answering a question with a question. Here's a response to Jaflin Bond. I get it. Those loving, kind, respectful, and submissive persons on earth which call others worthless fools and arrogant and hateful persons on earth are loving, kind, and respectful to their co-humans. Christianity in a nutshell. Why did Jesus need to be baptized? He as God cursed himself with the original sin at birth. He was unholy and imperfect until he was finally baptized. So confusing. And there's Jaflin Bond. How do my comments get hidden so well? And Jaflin Bond is just pasting away. Copy and pasting away. Tara Joyce says, actually reading the Bible is the greatest reason ex-Christians exist. I even read 4 different varieties cover to cover. Wow. That's inoculation right there. Yep, part 2. All right, let's see what's going on in the chat here. See, it's buzzing by. I need to fist pound the podium. Yes, that's true. I concur. I concur. Yeah. Got the nut part right. Thank you, Robin. That's true. I'm totally AI. Yeah. I believe it. Sincere is somebody who I met in real life multiple times. I have dinner and drinks with Sincere 2 to 3 times a month ish. So I think that's funny. Does this run-on sentence have any punctuation? It had parentheses. It had commas. I mean, what more do you want? More chapters and verse? Let's see what else. Really Tux is accurately portraying the commenter's inner dialogue here. Thank you. Thank you. That's funny. That's funny. All right, let's get back. I got you fooled. Yep. All right, let's see what we got here. Marcion was right. It was a different God for him. Some people just can't handle monotheism, so they fake it. When Christians say God is good and God is love, they are denying God's omnipotence and God, the creator of everything. Ellipsis. Yeah. I wonder what... It just has one comment. Real sincere commenter there. All right, killer episode, dude. I cannot wait for the New Testament. I'm excited. I've made a playlist called For Family. I don't think I'll have the guts to share it, but it consists of 90% of your content. You are so knowledgeable and go into so much depth. You're highly respected and appreciated by me. Thank you for all your hard work. Wow, that is a great comment. Cameron C. 362, that is a great comment. Let's give that a like. So encouraging. Thanks for all the love. Let's give that one a like too. That is a great comment. Thank you, Cameron C. That's beautiful. All right. Let's see. If God didn't save the good people of Sodom and Gomorrah, that makes Christians think he'd save them if he decided to annihilate the world. If we're being consistent with the Bible, he wouldn't. He'd smite you and send you down to hell, just like all the good people in those two cities. Yeah. Yep. Well, your comment at 5649 is stunning and highly logical. That it is pretty clear that the villain in the New Testament was God, so that the New Testament has to work pretty hard to change the bad guy. As one who has been committed to evangelical Christian for the last 52 years, I am gobsmacked by the logical relevance of this observant statement. I shudder as I now surmise I wonder if I was supposed to be a C more. Oh, no, that's it. Let's give that one a like too. A couple of Hail Satans. Oh, you got some money. Let's give the money giver some likes. Loving your work. Megan Phoenix 8267 says the Gnostics believe that the God of the Old Testament and the God who created this world was evil and trapped our souls in the physical world to imprison us. Because he was inferior to the higher gods, and he hated that he was inferior. Because he was jealous of other gods, it makes sense. Jesus came from a higher realm to wake us up and to make us realize we have been imprisoned. It's very interesting. I love learning about the mythologies. Yeah. Oh boy, there's Javelin Bond again. Oh boy. I'm surprised. I'm surprised you can copy and paste that many times the same thing over and over again. Victorious Catholic. I'm asking everyone this, and honest, gut check answers are encouraged. The Bible canon was decided in 397. Here we are in 2025. We are to believe that in 1628 years, the objections raised in this video were never once brought up and still went with no answer. That's very hard to believe, so it's better to just reject the video. Interesting. Interesting, Victorious Catholic. Let's see what Steve K307 says. Hello, Victorious Catholic. Isn't this the same sort of defense the Muslim wages as one example? I'll remind you that the question isn't how old is the lie, and how could so many people embrace the lie for so many generations? You know the sheer amount of deception being pushed by the various mutually exclusive faith-based religions and the number of deceived believers spread. Oh my goodness. Steve. Look at that. Truth matters and deception is bad. Surely you must see that. Please think seriously about the following. Imagine for a moment embracing any religion that answers yes to a single one of the following questions. And then imagine the absurdity of the Christian religion answering yes to all 10. We know better than to believe any of this is godly. Does God Jesus at any point in history desire that we put to death those that commit adultery? Does Jesus at any point in history desire that we put to death persons disrespecting their parents? Does Jesus at any point in history desire that we put to death a person picking up sticks on the Sabbath? Does Jesus at any point in history desire that we put to death a person engaged in idolatry and blasphemy? Endorse the practice of slavery. Endorses the practice of beating a slave. views a particular ethnic population as superior to any other, view females as inferior and necessarily submissive to males, create an individual that he knows will be tormented for an eternity, make repeated references to male genitalia and female virginity within his divine communications to humanity. Well, and to respond to that is Jaflin Bond. That's funny. Jaflin Bond's making... Wow. I keep saying the same thing. The Bible is a centuries-old book that has been scrutinized for centuries. And there's a whole field of knowledge dedicated to its study, theology. All the answers have been long since provided. Although studies continue for further understanding, people just need to read more. These videos are basically childish whining and a lot of noise, definitely not for the mature. Wow. Putting out videos on God's wicked acts, that's something the atheist channel Jezebel Vibes did a lot. She finally grew tired and stopped. Now she's doing lots of politics. I don't know. Maybe she'll return to it sometime later. Yeah, I think the point was, I think you missed the point. That's pretty good. It's a pretty good comment if you want to plug your ears and go la la la. All right, the response. Oh, that's not even a response to the person who responded to him, to Steve's comment. And to think the fool in the video thinks he can take on a major Christian YouTube channel. I look forward to skewering anything Brandon tries. What the hell does that mean? What the hell does that mean? I look forward to skewering. I mean, he basically wants to make a kebab out of Brandon. Brandon's thoughts and ideas. Interesting. Yeah. Chris went straight to the point. Another response. Did you just say I look forward to skewering anything Brandon tries? Well, we are waiting. Was that just a bluff? This does seem to be an extremely important topic. If you have something of substance, it seems you owe it to your God and us to speak up. I might imagine that you even have the upper hand if, in fact, you have a personal relationship with Jesus and have him actually inside you, with his light shining out, through you to the rest of the world, and him available to you for the divine inspiration in your upcoming replies. I'm sure the audience will clearly sense his truth within your responses. And that would, of course, be his desire. If all of this is true, then we will all benefit. A win-win for everyone. Of course, if it falls flat. What will that suggest? Yeah, that's a pretty good, one. I like Steve. Let's find out more about Steve. He's got 2 subscribers. He's received 5 likes from this channel. And it looks like he's replied to a different one. Kristen has the consent problem. And he's, wow. I like Steve's comment there. Let's see. You are a brilliant genius in your Mindshift channel work. I'm going to enlarge this because my eyes are a little out of focus now. There we go. But I think I lost my spot. There we go. Brilliant Jesus on your Mindshift channel work. You are suddenly and successfully analyzing and critiquing the world's most influential book in history, forcing a necessary sober revision of its former hallowed status. Thank you for this display of searing and scorching light against the formerly impregnable fortress of high-handed, mysterious allure. Very nice, Chuck. And the response is Javelin Bot. Wow. Yeah. Your comment at 46 about Yahweh being a lion and destroyer of the Old Testament, the Satan being a lion and destroyer in the New Testament is very relevant. For both lions and destroyers do similar work. Thank you for saying this. Yeah. Yeah. This presentation, oh yeah. Wow. 14 likes. Jimmy Tux just gave it a 14th like. Yeah, I think you said that already. If exist, Yahweh is Satan. And there's Javelin Bond. All right, let's see what was going on in the chat here. Yeah. The Bible. For the Bible tells me so. I knew it. It was Javelin replying. Yeah, Javelin's hell and damnation sermon there. Touched me, right? I'll show you on the Dow where it touched me. Everyone a sound mind, yeah. That's crazy. I think so. A little bit. Yeah, I think he got one. Yeah. I think that's right. I think this one right here. I think Chuck may be a deconvert now. So basically, Chuck replies again, in my 2 years as a committed evangelical Christian, this is the first time I've ever seen a direct side-by-side comparison of Yahweh and Satan. Thank you for being courageous and intelligent and a vital groundbreaking author to do so. Your comparison now leaves no doubt in my mind that Yahweh is not only every bit as bad as the Bible says Satan is, but that Yahweh is actually far worse quantitatively, and because Yahweh nowhere acknowledges he is own denied evil and disguised guile. Yahweh has deludedly convinced himself that all of his evil actions always have the ultimate good as their intent and goal, and that therefore he himself is utterly blameless. Similar in working mindset to Donald J. Trump presently and their psychopath tyrants of history. Yeah, that's a good one. What do you want to bet? What do you want to bet this reply? Who's got Vegas odds? It's Javelin. It's Javelin. I think Vegas odds are now you're going to lose money by winning. You are awesome, thank you. Yeah. Even natural consequence. Excuse division made with contrast to it being an ordained or caused curse all natural consequences are still under the umbrella of the original God-caused curse, which means all evil is God's fault, 100% of it. If he hadn't changed human nature to be effed up, we wouldn't desire evil, and therefore wouldn't do it. So, he punishes people because of and for his previous punishment of giving a fallen evil nature. Makes no sense. It shows the Bible God to be far, far more evil than any demon, especially since he also created demons' natures as well. I'd say that's a very good assessment. Way to go, Jude 3. Look at that. He's received 53 hearts. He's a top commenter. Wow, he's received one of the highest number of hearts from this channel. Wow. 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 Let's see what the replies are. And of course, there's Jefflin. Well said, you are correct. Chuck is really bringing out the... Look at this. We may have a different comment. Do we have a different comment? No. No. It's Jefflin just copy and paste failure, I think. Yeah. Way to go, Jefflin. You're my hero. I would have been surprised if you'd made it through the whole Bible in one episode. Please do a part 2. There's so much in the New Testament that is problematic. As always, your points are well laid out, and you make it so clear how this is not a God to worship in any way, shape, or form. Yep. I concur. All wonderful points aside, the painting you choose in this thumbnail is one of my favorites. In the expert way, it conveys emotion. Maybe click this vid. Thanks for Brandon for a solid content. And Brandon said, "I love it too, and thanks." Wow. I agree. Where's my hover car? That's funny. Wow. Chuck's commented again. Wow. Chuck and Steve. Getting a lot of repeat commenters. Occurs to me that with the God of the Bible being such an undeniably evil monster, the only reason the Bible is still desperately clung to for the hope and stability of by millions and millions of people is because it also includes a very strong carrot, elements of the mention and the promise of essential and necessary good things to eternal heaven, love, kindness, healing, mercy, companionship. So the Bible maintains its lure to needy people as described in the Stockholm Syndrome, where the victim is in needy love with his captor. Like where an obsessed spouse fears to leave the abuser because of there not being anywhere else to go. A very sad situation and an arrangement. Yahweh is undeniably evil. Personality traits. A subconscious reflection of the similar personalities of the Iron Age authors and writers of the creators of the Bible. Thank you so much for your vital Mindshift channel work. Got another love. Devil's greatest trick is making everyone worship him as God. Okay. Interesting. Numbers 31 is proof. Double, triple ellipsis. Worst God ever. A pedophile as well. A pedo as well. As a Christian, I really like watching your videos to challenge me and make me question the truth about life and my religion. I ask you not to attack me for believing in God still, but I do welcome any comments that might change my beliefs. Steve commented, and I seem to remember liking Steve. I like Steve a lot. Yes, I think you might be starting to realize that it is amazing how everyone can recognize the man-made nature of all the religions they don't embrace, but can't see the man-made nature of a particular religion they do embrace. And do we just shrug our shoulders and extend everyone the right to believe whatever they want, to act out those beliefs no matter what the cost to humanity? Of course not. The fog of religion's deceptions runs thick. The nonsense needs to stop. Truth matters and deception is bad. The truth of God's existence, however it might turn out, is one thing. The truth of any particular world religion is quite another. There is a huge unjustified leap that occurs between the claim that God exists to the claim that Christianity is true, or Islam is true, or Mormonism is true, or Jehovah's Witness is true, so on and so on. I'm sure you must agree. Thank you. And Elise Robinson replies, I wish I could hear just all of your main points in one video. Like what you found were lies, and when you found was truth, and why you believe that. I'm trying to decipher lies from truth myself, but I don't know how much searching I'll have to do to get to that point. You know, that's a really good comment. From the perspective of somebody who's agnostic about quite a few of the things of a creator or first mover or cosmos designer or any of those things, but being an atheist of God and Jesus a God, I have a similar, even though I'm a non-believer, I have a very similar question. So, are there any from Wesley? Yeah. All right, Beth Bubs, new follower here. Thank you for this video. I mean, really and truly, thank you. I'm the only deconstructed all the way to the atheist person in my family. My very large extended family that's from the Deep South and counts many deacons. Sunday school teachers and pastors among them. My daddy became a preacher with a doctor of theology from a Southern Baptist seminary after he served 30 plus years in the military. Except for my parents, everyone is in your face. Do what I say, not what I do. Party Saturday night, but in the pew come Sunday morning. Kind of Christians. My parents were the pinnacle, an example that there is no way any of us kids could emulate. For example, I never heard either parent yell, much less say a curse word. I never saw them take a sip of alcohol or a pinch of tobacco product. They lived simply and gave generously, always in secret. A child at church needed new shoes. The money was found later in his mama's purse. Praise Jesus. It's a miracle. No, it was my parents. Anyway, my point is that your video gives me specific verse references that I can go look up, write down, and use to explain myself at family gatherings. I'm eagerly awaiting the New Testament breakdown of God versus Satan. That is a beautiful comment. That is fantastic. Really appreciate this. Thanks for taking the time to share. That deserves a like too, Brandon. Wow. I think that's a good one to end on. Been going for 2 hours, 23 minutes, and 11 seconds. I think that's a good one to land on. But that's right there. Wow. Wow. Well, my friends, I have a moment of Zen queued up. To say that there is a God and that there is a subordinate to God or some variation of a verses means that it means that we have a world that lives in deception. The moment that you have a deceiver start essentially in the foundation of the Bible, I can show evidence upon evidence that human beings deceive other human beings. And I have never been presented with good evidence that there is a God or a demon God or a rival of God existing that actually does any kind of deceiving. And if you have that evidence, I recommend that you pull out your camera on your phone and you get a selfie with that interactive being so that it can be presented as good evidence. So, Brandon, thank you for all your hard work and efforts and your commentary. It is fantastic. Clearly, Beth Bub, was it Beth Bub? Yeah, Beth Bubs. Clearly, Beth Bubs. Clearly, she, assuming she's a she. She said it fantastic. Perfect. All the people who have been other people's saints kind of make the evidence that this is a human-made situation. Humans can be good to other humans, but they can also rip your face off. And there were humans a long time ago who were under the influence that this God exists, who either learned how to rip people's faces off for that God, or learned how to stick money in purses as the opposite of a pickpocket. You have a choice whether you put it to a supernatural being or you find the reality of the situation. It's up to you. So I appreciate all the mothers and fathers out there who have bought children who needed shoes, or an electric bill needed to be paid during the winter, or some variation. And they did it even under the guise of a supernatural being. But it also supports the opposite effect of the humans who use that same being to rip your face off. It is the knowledge of good and evil. And it's ever present in every single Christian, every single community that surrounds themselves with Christians. There is the opposite of that pickpocket, but there's also the pickpocketer. It's your choice. So, I thank you for showing up tonight. We had a pretty good show. I'm going to try to do it some more. My video is, it's close to being done, but I say that and I want to make it perfect. And I had a hitch a couple of weeks ago, and I'm working through that hitch, and hopefully I have it out here in the next couple hours. So it's gonna be my favorite thing that I've ever done, and I can't wait to show it to the world. And Bowtie bless to you all. Here is your moment of Zen.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of church signs that my followers have sent me that are definitely not funny or suggestive in any way whatsoever. First off, we have Bella Vista Baptist Church. Forgiveness is swallowing when you want to spit. Okay. Second, we have Hickory Flat Fellowship. The best way to the top is on your knees, if you say so. Third, we have Gospel Harvest Church. The Lord is and will come. Has he came in you? No. Fourth, we have Forest Hills Evangelical Free Church with the timeless Bible verse Psalm 16:11. In your right hand there are pleasures forever. Praise the Lord. Open Door Baptist Church. Jesus is touching you. Please stop, Jesus. And finally, we have the House of Prayer. Eat the devil's corn, you will choke on his cob. That's too bad. We now have this honorable mention, Blue Ball Baptist Church.